All right. How's everybody doing today? So, welcome to the Fraudboxer Podcast. My name is Jordan. I'd like you guys both to introduce yourselves. I'm going to start with the guest of honor right now. Could you please introduce yourself? I think everybody's going to know who you are, though.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Erin West. I'm a deputy district attorney in Santa Clara County, and I'm a fraud fighter.
Yes, you are. And then who's this guy over here?
Hey there, I'm Andrew Ross. I'm the head of fraud prevention for a company called Sardine. And I'm also a fraud fighter. I've been fighting fraud, money laundering, terrorism for the past 21 years now.
Yes, you have. And if anybody would like to know more, he's been on the show. Go back. We can find an episode with him on there. I'll link it in the description of this particular one. But Erin, I would like to talk about what you have been, the last couple of your lives, or a couple of years of your life has been really dedicated to what is called pig butchering. Now, I don't think on this particular show we should go too deep into what it is, because there's plenty of things that John Oliver, like you said, was out there, plenty of articles that you have done, but you are kind of the leader on what pig butchering is, what's happening, what it's affecting. And what I would like to talk about today is the human aspect of pig butchering, because we should probably level set a little bit with what pig butchering is. So you probably have the best words. If you could give me a quick 10,000-foot overview of what pig butchering actually is.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I'm also glad that we're going to talk about the human side, because that's actually the side I'm most passionate about. So I look forward to that. Pig butchering is it's a combination of a romance scam with a crypto investment scheme. And what it does is it lures in victims and gets them to engage in what they think is a very real romantic relationship or a real honest friendship. Yeah. Trust is built, and over time, our victim is led to believe that the scammer is a good person living an elevated lifestyle with nice cars, nice travel, and then the fraudster explains they got these things because they invest in cryptocurrency. They'd like to teach our victim how to do that.
Yeah.
And the problem with pig butchering is that it doesn't end until they've taken every last dollar from our victim.
So I just watched you do an excellent keynote, and I was under the impression before that pig butchering wasn't always just crypto. Is it always crypto, or is it just like, I need you to pay my phone bill, or I need to pay my mortgage, or would those count as that?
Sounds like more of a traditional romance scam to me. What I think about pig butchering, I think about something that is happening on an industrial scale that is really script-driven and a highly organized way. And but what I will say is that it changes. And where once it used to be all crypto, now we see these bad actors talking our victims into buying gold bars.
Oh, that's super interesting. Now, for me, I've been in traditional credit card fraud fighting for 15 years now. And you'll appreciate this too, because this is where I wanted to have you come in. Scams are everything now. It used to be $500 credit card, rip it, charge back, fraud, off it goes. But over the last few years, as people have discovered and become coordinated with these scams, the numbers are huge. They're hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, millions even. I saw one just the other day, $1 million. And you had some information about what you guys are seeing in as far as scams, right, these days?
Yeah, well, so I started posting about scams on LinkedIn about 6 months to a year ago. It started with pig butchering, I think. Yeah. Was some of the first things I posted about, and it came to light because of fake LinkedIn profiles. A lot of folks on LinkedIn want to grow their
That's why we have
base.
To post every single day,
That's
right?
That's why you post, got to beat the algorithm. And when I started posting, I'm getting followers, but I take a look at some of the people that I have following me, and it's someone that's completely outside my industry. That's a young Asian woman that's outside of my industry. And
I'm going to invest in crypto.
Yeah. I never got to that point. But, these people would send me a message like, I'd like to know more about your industry.
Okay.
I'm like, why? Why does someone in, it wouldn't always just be in Asia. They'd be all over the place. Lithuania. The other day I had someone with 10,000 plus followers that was an assistant manager of a restaurant in Lithuania reach out to me.
It's a really good restaurant.
I'm like, why? Why? So I started blocking them. I don't care about my follower count. I want the people that I speak with to be real. And I want to deliver a message that's real. So I started posting about that. And I had one post that just absolutely blew up, took off. And I just kept posting about it. You know, I have always lived my life in a way that I want to help others. And this, you know, I spent 12 years in the military. I got into anti-money laundering, kind of found some purpose there outside of the military, and then, you know, moved forward with my career in fraud. And I feel like there is so much good that we can do. It's not just about stopping the bad guys. It's about protecting the good ones. So,
what about at Sardine? Are you guys seeing a shift in fraud scams, like any sort of breakdown? Do you have any numbers on that?
So nothing I can share off the top of my head. I've only been there a couple months.
That's true.
You know, I think what we see on the crypto side is on the scams is a lot of users that appear to be perfectly good because they are.
Yeah,
right?
they're
There's
real
no
people
difference.
really putting money into these accounts. It's where the money goes, right? At the end of the day.
It's not someone that has stolen an identity or created a synthetic identity to create an account and fraudulently obtain cryptocurrency. It is people like you and me that can pass KYC checks. They have a real driver's license. They take a selfie, and it's them. They pass that. They have a good device, good IP. They have good everything, and they buy crypto. And then, you know, we might get a return on the ACH or a chargeback on the credit card, but they look exactly like everyone else.
So this is kind of leading me to where I really wanted to go with this, because I have lately, it's changing and you're going to like this. Historically, I have said, well, it's their own damn fault. And you put up a post a couple of weeks ago with that story. I believe it was a lady from Colorado, if I wasn't mistaken. And that actually was like, okay, the human aspect of this changes it a little more, because so my whole thing is, and I've done episodes where I've talked about it, where like we're working towards this, some sort of like legislation or some sort of framework is like, seems to be where it's going. The meeting in Congress where they wanted like banks to have more responsibility for protecting their consumers, which I think is great.
Right.
But at what point, I had historically always said, at what point do the banks finally get to say, hey, we put roadblocks in place. They powered through every single one of them. Now it's on them. And maybe the answer is never. They never get to say, like, you went through too much. But I don't know, because as I started, even today, when you did your speech today, it's like, these are people that, like, there's a human there, and they made a mistake. And like you said, where the 4.5 billion that you had on the slide from the IC3 report, you said 10x it because the people don't report it, because it's embarrassing. I would be embarrassed. Like, and Julie, you know, she was able to say that, you know, but like I would say she was just trying to buy stuff on a website. That's different than, you know, sending money. But like, what are your thoughts on, and how do you frame it to the human piece of it for people that did go, they saw the email, you're probably in a scam, but they did it anyway. So how do you, what are your thoughts on that? Like that whole thing?
Well, the first thing I love is that a post I made about this affected you in a way that made you think twice about it. So
I was kind of being an asshole, and now I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been.
That makes me happy. I think that it's worth being honest about this in terms of, I think for a lot of people, the first reaction is, well, why did you send all that money? Like, you sent all of your money away.
That's where my mind would immediately go with it. And like, I know when I send like even Zelle payments, some of the hoops I have to jump through to send $100 to my gardener, for example.
Right.
And if I was sending $100,000, like even when I was buying my house, like I made damn sure like that money, I even had to call and do all these secondary validations to make sure that the money was really going to go there, because that's like all I got.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
I felt that too. I think when you become a prosecutor and you start hearing about romance scams, like the first time you hear about a romance scam, you think, oh gosh, how did they get talked into that? And then it really wasn't until I started reading actual WhatsApp chats that I was like, oh, okay. And so I'll tell you, I have as part of Operation Shamrock, we have a victim group. The woman who leads our victim group is a victim, and she wrote this beautiful 30-page paper on her experience. And it wasn't until I read that paper that I was like, oh, I see how you got there. Oh, and then he said that? Oh, well, now I see why you did that. Because I think for a lot of us, it's really hard to get past you've never even met this person.
Yeah.
And it was But it was really interesting. He gave her a whole story about how his parents met when his dad was overseas, and they just wrote letters to each other, physical letters. And he thought that was such a romantic thing. And when he meets her, he wants to give her this book of their letters to each other. And you could see where you could get swept up in that.
Yeah. So
well, I just want to add to that. You know, if you're talking to someone as well, like, you know, we'd say we want to educate people,
Right.
right? Educate, sees, disrupt.
Right.
When you're talking with people that you know, family members, elderly parents, think about something they truly believe in, and you tell them they're wrong. What do?
They go online and they yell about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe so. But typically, like, whether it's religion or whatever, you tell someone like something they believe in, no, you are wrong. They push back against that.
Yeah.
So, like, as a personal example, like, I'm not trying to make this about me, but
Sure.
as a combat veteran, I have PTSD. I've talked about this openly. I went to my dad a couple years ago, and I told him, like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Something is wrong with me. I'm afraid if I don't get help, I'm going to hurt myself.
Okay.
And he looked at me and he laughed.
Really?
Yeah. Because his concept of reality was, well, I know my son. There's nothing wrong with him.
Yeah.
He presents outwardly as though everything's fine. And he laughed at me. And I don't begrudge him for that anymore, but that's the same thing. Like, if you know someone and someone comes, like, they tell me, I have a new girlfriend, I have a new boyfriend, and you start looking at it and digging into it. It's like, hey, Dad, hey,
Do
Mom,
you?
this isn't real.
Yeah.
Like, this is very clearly what's happening. No. You don't understand. Anna, it was she asked me if, you know, she said, I was at the airport. Are you here? I'm in Terminal A. It was just a missed text. And man, we really hit it off after that. That's how these things happen. Because, you know, if I'm 65, 70 and my spouse has passed away recently, and I get a text like that and I'm lonely, man, does that hit home? I just need someone to talk to. And this person talks to me and listens to me. They don't know that it's someone across the world trying to just milk them dry. And that's the human part of this that's so painful.
Well, so there was in House Fraud, we had a guy that was doing, because the scams is obviously a huge topic in there all the time. And I guess Dados Insights did a big webinar the other day, and I guess where they mentioned on there, I think it was Julie Conroy that actually mentioned on there that one bank, and I don't know if you know which one it is maybe, but is starting to, people that call in through the IVR and that they're clearly a victim of, they're starting to get routed to a psychologist to talk to.
That's amazing.
Like, and like they're trying to like really talk them out and be like, and help people understand. And there's some more hard numbers in there. I'll have to pull. I'll if I can find them, I'll put them in the description. But they're saying that it takes a psychologist even some time to get through to these people, but they are winning. But they say that it can't scale because they
That's
can't.
exactly right.
You can't do it. Yeah.
Right. Well, what a great step forward. But I think it really speaks to how masterful the enemy is and how good they are at creating a situation where they can convince victims that they are the one to be believed, not your children, not your spouse. Like, you need to believe them above all others. That's amazing work.
I mean, I'm trying to think back, you know, like we always tell like the jokes about the guy trying to sell the Brooklyn Bridge or the guy, you know, trying to sell the moon and all those sorts of things. Like, as I'm going through this, like, yeah, credit card fraud is, you know, billions of dollars every year. Like, but not, has there ever been anything to this scale?
We've never seen anything
ever,
like this.
right?
No.
And it's crazy. And like, I just keep coming back to like how I've always said, like, even on my own show, like, what point does the person have to take personal accountability? And like, I feel myself changing as I've paid more attention to this, because historically I do fraud payments. I don't do scams, you know, and all that, but these worlds collide. They always do. It's one scheme that works one way. It can be scaled in another way. And that's where this is happening. And it's a really weird transition for me mentally to go through, to be like, oh, wow, like it could happen to anybody. And like, I even look at some of the reports where like the scams that get, like, you know, like you said on stage earlier, it's so often painted as an elderly problem.
Right.
But Gen Z is the one that's falling for it the most.
Yes.
So I'll say, one of the other things we see in crypto with crypto scams is fake job scams, right? It's the same concept. It's so if a crypto exchange says like, if we're going to put like extra enhanced due diligence on folks over the age of 65, for example. That doesn't solve the crypto scam problem because you have 25, 30, 35, 50-year-old men and women that have been contacted by a recruiter that are going on to pay for their MacBook and sending it off to get custom software installed.
Yeah, I see that on Reddit every day. Every day I see somebody
You go
says,
to
is this job real? And they've already bought the
our
stuff.
scams,
And I'm like,
you
"Jeez,
go to the
dude."
scam subreddit, and it's just like task scam, task scam, task scam, fake CEO scam. It's just one after the other of these different scams that are being run, and it's incredible. So something that you asked in your keynote was how many people in the room, and how many people are here? 200-300 people?
I'd say about 200, yeah.
So you asked how many people here have heard of pig butchering, and it looked like about half the room. And I thought, like, well, not everyone likes to raise their hand.
Right.
So,
right.
And then you said how many people haven't heard of pig butchering, and it was about half the room.
Yeah.
And I think we are at a
I was shocked by that. I expected your audiences that you probably do this particular audience, I expected them to be everybody.
I did too.
That's what everybody should know.
So take
Right.
that
These
out.
are frog people.
And these are like the members. These are like the
Right.
high,
The people
ones
that care.
done this the
So take
longest.
that out into the general population and ask that question.
Yeah.
And it's going to be about, I don't know, 1% or less that have even heard about it or understand what a crypto scam or could identify a scam in general. Like, it's so prevalent. And it's sad to see all the different typologies of scams that we have. And I love what you're doing about education. And there needs to be more people involved in this, more groups involved in this. But you have to educate before it comes to that point of them investing.
So here, okay, that's excellent. Another excellent transition from you. Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking me on this journey. Education piece. Now you're doing your education piece, which is great. And I see these emails come in from like my bank and stuff. It says, don't fall for scams.
Right.
Do you think that that's enough? Because it never tells me what really to look for. It doesn't give me. So what I think is, like, for me, if I get this email from a bank, like, I want something shocking to stop me in my tracks. Like, say, we lost $30 billion last year alone from scams for people trying to send money into crypto, blah, blah, blah. Like, put something of substance in there. So if it is familiar to me, then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm a part of it. Like, that's what I think. Because I feel like they're just sending these emails out and just being like, okay, we did our diligence now.
I totally agree with you. And I think that I talk about this too, that we need to do something we haven't done before. We need to do something that's going to get your attention. We need something that's going to punch you in the face, because when I look at those emails, I'm like, next. Because I don't know what you're talking about. I already know, don't click on something from someone you don't know. Like, I know all of that, but I'll tell you a story. So I was up late one night having a conversation on LinkedIn with a victim who was very frustrated at what was happening, and he didn't like the way his case was being handled.
Okay.
And I totally get that, totally understand. Went to bed feeling bad for him. Woke up the next morning, I'm barely awake, sun not up yet, and I start scrolling through my phone, and there's an email from a victim, and I think it's this guy. And I look at it, and he's like, I think you don't actually really care about victims. I've tried to reach out to you 3 times, and you haven't responded. And so I wrote about it on my website, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I don't care about victims? Oh, I care about victims. And I was like, click. And then I was like,
no.
So he was baiting you even into.
So it wasn't him. It was a scam.
Yeah, but it was a scam baiting you into it.
It was so targeted, right?
Yeah,
like, what does Erin West care about? She cares about victims. Let's bait her on victims. And so what's so interesting about that is, like, I don't know how many times I've said out loud, don't click on things from people you don't know.
And what did you do?
And that's the thing, is like, yes, we need to keep educating, but we need to educate about that. We need to educate. And, like, thought I had talked to my dad about Norton antivirus. I thought we had that covered.
Did he get a bill for $500?
Yes, he did.
Oh,
and
man.
he was outraged because those people owe him money. And so he's going to call them up and give them a piece
right from
of
that
his
number
money.
in the email too, huh?
What's terrible about this, like, we educate, right? But even as a fraud professional, I don't feel confident clicking on any link now.
Yeah, but I don't even like sending PDFs anymore.
I don't want to
like,
scan
I'm like,
a
are they
QR
going to be able
code.
to open it? Are they going to know? Like,
Right.
like, that's what's crazy.
I don't answer my phone. I don't answer text messages from people that I don't know.
That's why it takes forever.
I don't scan QR codes. I don't click on links. It's like, what can we do? So like me knowing that, if we educate non-fraud professionals, people not in law enforcement, what does that do to like societal trust, right? If I send my dad a text message that, hey dad, I really need some money because I'm in jail in Mexico.
Please go buy Google gift cards.
Right. No, if it's legit, if something legitimate has happened to me, and I've told him like,
have you been in
never
jail in
answer
Mexico?
this. I have not. No, I've never been in jail.
Okay.
I've been on the other side of the bars in jail, but not the bad side. But if I do that, then I need to get a hold of him, and he's not going to answer. So it's not just education on what the scam is. It's the emotional piece. It's how to identify. We need not just how to identify the scammers, but how to identify
exactly
good
right.
people.
Yes.
Yeah. So we basically need to inverse our tactics.
Yeah.
Trusted people. Well, you see, like,
well, you
even
think
on
about
phones, they have like the check mark now
Yeah.
from your network to say this is a real phone number that this really belongs to this person.
to put it in a fraud context, like it used to just be like, we need to stop all the fraud. In the past couple of years, you've seen this big shift towards like, yeah, we can stop the fraud, but we need to increase auth rates. We need to maintain
it's
a good
the
customer
balance,
experience.
100%. And that's
same
that's where
thing.
I'm at with my company right now. Is like we actually increase our risk appetite because we want more authorizations.
Yeah.
And it always is up and down, pulling this lever, pulling that lever every day. But I mean, for us, like I don't know if it's just how like TikTok works or how social media works, but it seems that like maybe we solved fraud enough that these scams started to rise because it wasn't as lucrative over here, or maybe they just, because one guy got $100,000, told his two friends, they told two people, and now you got factories over in Miramar just cranking out text messages every day. I'm sure I probably got one while we've been sitting here.
I'm sure you have. Yeah.
I got a text from my CEO this morning.
Oh yeah, did you go get him some gift cards? Yeah.
Wow.
He's in a meeting, right? He can't.
Well, it was yesterday morning, but it was at 6:42 a.m.
Did he say his whole name and title?
Absolutely. Well, I didn't do the title, but full name. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's every day. It's every day. I'm getting something different. I'm talking to Anna.
Yeah.
You're talking to Anna? Yeah.
Talking to Anna.
Talking to Anna.
And if you don't know what that means, most of the women that reach out to me, at least, say that their name is Anna.
Oh, I get a lot of
Really?
Jessica's.
Jessica's.
Yeah.
I've got Jessica's, Jennifer's, Anna's.
Mhm.
I actually got the photo that you.
Oh, you've gotten that?
I got that one like this last week, and I was like,
almost said that's my
is it-
girlfriend.
Yeah.
because I remember I was looking at it, I was like, is it on a plane or is it in
Right.
a gym?
Is it Jim? I was thinking
Yeah.
Jim, but it could be a plane. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a gym, and I was looking at yours.
Anna
on it.
travels. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, if you could write the perfect way, how would you like it? Like, how would you like it to be for the education piece, for the liability piece? Like, how would you want it to be from a victim's advocacy standpoint, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Like-
I think about this all the time, and I put it on LinkedIn the other day. I was like, no one wants to put all their eggs in one basket, but like, if we were going to put our eggs in one basket, what do we think is the one thing that would really change how this is?
I like that. What is that one
What
thing?
is it? What is the one thing? And it was
So
funny.
here we go. What's the answer?
Well, I would love to tell you. So I'd love to say it's education, but like we know how educated we are, and I clicked on a link, and
You still
Julie,
do it?
right? Like, but is there something about like just educating? The world that we live in has changed, and we need to treat any entry into our digital realm as a scammer until otherwise proven. Like, is that the new way of thinking? Is that do we have to become a place where like everybody's a scammer? I'm not going to click on anything unless I know
it's
that person.
a zero trust mindset.
Yes. And is that where we find ourselves?
I'm curious, like with Operation Shamrock, I know there's others like what is it, the Noble, that do stuff related to this as well. Do you guys work with educators, psychologists, to try to shape the message in a way that's going to resonate with different audiences?
That is a great idea. So, we're in startup phase of we've got a lot of great ideas, but the thing about the psychologist piece, I think that is key. And I was talking to someone recently who was doing an article, and they were talking to a psychologist, and
Or
I was
maybe
like,
marketing people.
that's where we've got to go. The marketing is a really good idea because I think we need to start doing messaging exactly what you said. Like, you don't care about that email about watch out for scams. But like, is there a creative TikTok thing you might watch? Is there something funny that you could find on Instagram where you're like, ooh, didn't realize that? Or I don't know.
Like PSAs, like they do
Right.
in like the old train ones in like England and
Yeah,
stuff, you know,
yeah.
that got
So
everybody's
get
attention.
Yeah.
some influencers to do some
Yeah.
deals for you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Operation Shamrock a little bit here. Is it a place for people to go to? Is it a community? Like, what is it?
So it's definitely it's an organized group of people who have recognized the major situation we find ourselves in and are willing to roll up their sleeves and do something about it. And so the way it works is we are assembled into 5 working groups where we have specific goals that we're trying to meet and we're getting things done. There definitely is more room for community building.
Okay.
And I'm seeing already just in being involved with Haley Wyndham and banking that like there's a great law enforcement banking crossover. When I started talking to bankers and I started talking about the fraud kill chain or just basic crypto concepts, they're not familiar with them on the like frontline level. And so it's important to realize like, gosh, and I'm seeing new things, right? Like now I'm seeing that instead of paying taxes with crypto, there are couriers on the ground in the United States that will come pick up $50,000 in cash from you, right?
Serious?
So tell her, oh yeah, and we just arrest someone in Santa Clara County. Yes.
Do they wrap it in tinfoil? And
No, I mean that's the whole thing. Is like
it seems legit,
right? Is that Shamrock gives us the opportunity to start having these conversations. So I'll tell you if you're interested. I'll tell you about the changing.
Yes.
So so what we're seeing now is like before people would make their investment. So this victim in Santa Clara County had invested $170,000 and now it was worth $1 million. He thought.
Of course.
And so they asked for their $250,000 in taxes. And by then he caught on that like, oh, okay, this is a scam. Anyway, we realized that the bad guys were coming to pick up $250,000 and in cash. And so we intercepted them and made an arrest. So I don't want to talk specifically about that case, but what I'll tell you is happening all over the United States there are Telegram groups of couriers who are now in the business of picking up duffel bags full of cash.
So they're the new mules, basically?
They are the new mules. They are the new employed mules who are doing this work. And the other thing they're doing is gold bars, picking up gold bars. They are telling people to go buy gold bars. And my next door neighbor told me that her 84-year-old mother was driving around town trying to buy gold bars.
Wow.
Wow.
So I'm curious. I see, a lot of the other Telegram groups and fraud groups.
Oh my God.
Recruit like college students.
Yep.
For identity theft, for their bank account credentials so they can launder money. How are they for the courier groups? How are they recruiting people? Is it the same way? Like, hey, just go pick up this bag. We'll give you $5,000. Or
well, yeah. So there apparently are a lot of opportunities where they are soliciting Chinese students who are here.
Oh, okay.
Some on counterfeit credentials, and they are enabling money movement in that way. And what's interesting is, China has a law that you can't take out more than $50,000 out of China. So what this is enabling is getting cash to people, to Chinese citizens who wouldn't have ordinarily had the opportunity to get the cash. It's a whole money laundering system that's been in progress for years that needs to be looked at and taken down.
I saw Matt, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. He's in law enforcement.
Was he my man, Matt Hogan?
Yeah.
Yep, I was just texting with him.
The other day.
Yeah.
He was talking about college kids driving around in Maseratis and all this stuff. And I remember back when I was in school.
Right?
All the, the international students had the Maseratis, the Aston Martins, the BMWs. I'm thinking like, this is just absolutely insane. And I wonder if has it been going on for that long?
Well, I mean, one of the things that really resonated today with me too was like, when you tried to get law enforcement engagement at other agencies, they were like, well, we don't do crypto. So there's just a whole thing that no one was just looking at all. Like, and it was just like, well, yeah, we don't do that. Well, meanwhile, like money's being washed in the millions and millions and millions of dollars every single day.
Well,
and
I think
they were
looking at crypto, but they weren't looking at it from a scam perspective. So they want to know who's laundering the money through crypto. But this is different.
Well, what I'm here to tell you is that local law enforcement, there are the majority of local law enforcement is not taking any crypto cases in any way.
So because they're looking for regular burglaries, those sorts of things. But meanwhile, this guy's literally in their jurisdiction, ran through $1 million from his neighbor, and they just are like, yeah, it's crypto, so no, I don't deal with that.
Yes. And so that's what we're working on, is like that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
That's how bad guys are moving money. And whether it's that or whether it's CSAM or whether it's narco money, like that's how money's getting moved. And so we can't afford not to know about it.
So as we begin to wrap up here, any last thoughts or predictions for the future or anything from either of you, actually? Erin, we'll start with you.
Sure. I'm gonna start with an optimistic one. I think that we are gaining traction with local law enforcement wanting to learn about this. And so right now it's more of a, how do we capture the local law enforcement and get them into the crypto coalition so that we can provide them with a community where they can learn this.
One of the things too, just real quick on that, is like you had mentioned, like it's one of the things that like came up in even the Dados one too, was like getting like people are starting to ask for, banks are starting to ask for kind of like a I guess what I would think of like a no-fly list type thing, some sort of shared list experience for people that they could pull from to say, hey, these schemes or these people, this money, this wallet, whatever it may be, is involved in it. Now, I don't know how that'll look. I'm going to pretend to do that. I'll let people like you, smarter than me, figure that one out at the end of the day. But I think like that seems to be, you had mentioned sort of getting buy-in, getting lists. I think of it like in law enforcement, CODIS, for DNA, but for like these types of scams, seems like something that would be a logical step.
That is top of my list. Top of my list is a better reporting system for victims. And I think by next year, we're going to see definitely the movement of getting victims into victim support type situations. I think there'll be movement there. It'll be positive. Where we get stuck is, to me, one of the most important pieces, and that is, how do we have a data collection portal that we can share that limits PI&I, that but that enables us to know, like, these are not trustworthy websites. Like, so enables like a local credit union to type that in and be like, oh, well, it's on the
that's where my mind
list.
was going, is like where, like, instead of like having necessarily the name of the person or even the phone number, because we know they're just going to recycle those phone numbers a million times. But like, where was the money going? Where did they tell them to go?
Right.
Like what website, even though those change, but do some fuzzy logic. It's got to be something in there.
There are some technology companies that look at on-chain transactions and can provide risk of different wallets. But to your point, I'm going to spin up a new wallet very easy.
Yeah.
So there are some tools out there, and I think there needs to be more of a consortium effort. It's very difficult when you talk about banks and sharing data, because they're very limited in what they can actually share with each other.
Yeah, it seems like you said you were getting more buy-in from like smaller banks and credit unions, right? Or
I think that's the interesting part of it, that it feels like it's local and state law enforcement make up 90% of law enforcement. And so if I can get local and state law enforcement to be thinking the same way about this, then we're in great shape. And I think we're getting a lot of buy-in from, I think the reason why we get more buy-in from local and state and from the smaller banks is we are on the ground floor all the time. We are talking to these people in person, on the phone, understanding like, oh my God, this is so much worse than I thought. Like, I didn't even understand. Last night I met a victim, and I've talked to a lot of victims, but there's always nuggets that I didn't totally appreciate that she shared with me about like how bitter she still is about the loss of that money. Understandably.
How long has it been?
It's only been a year, but like, but the things that she had been planning to do with that money, and now the money is lost, and that bitterness is really souring her on her life experience.
Yeah,
and so I think it's very easy to dismiss things until you hear a whole story, and then you're like, oh, that's not how I want you to live your life. You're only 34 years old. I want you to be able to trust a man again. I want you to be able to trust fellow humans again.
I could see 100%, like even people that you would meet in person, like, is there an angle? Like, what's going on? Like, is it too good to be true? Like, you just be second guessing every little thing you do.
A lot of these victims have PTSD from it.
I think that's exactly right.
Because I mean, the trust that they had in that person in society in general is just completely stripped away.
Well, that's why like the Gen Z stuff, that's what they say, like they fall for it, is because like they've had so much trust in just everything they encounter online because they were born into an internet age, you know,
Yeah.
like
Right.
it was, everything was online, you know, like when especially like me, like I remember firing up the computer, my parents were like, don't do anything on the internet because
Yeah.
it's all fake and it's all trying to kill you, you
Mhm.
know, like I remember when I first started buying stuff online, I was like, am I doing this right? Is this
Right.
against the law? It's wild. Well, thank you for your time. I really, really, really appreciate it. I'm going to keep following all your posts. Really interesting information. You know, it was really funny too. Quick story. I think it was CNBC. They do these really cool YouTube little nuggets, and they had one on pig butchering. And I was sitting there with my girlfriend, and I was like, I wonder if Erin's going to be on this. And like probably like a second later, you popped on the screen, and I was like, oh, there she is.
There she is.
So
Oh, that's funny.
I will link you in the description of this video. Everybody go follow her. Read about Operation Shamrock. If you have any stories or anything like that, share in the comments. There's help. If you need help, I'm sure Erin has a team that could help you out, some victims resources of some kind. There's Andrew over there too, you know.
I'll help you too. I'll talk to anyone.
But yeah, thank you for your time. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us on, Jordan.